It's news from around the southeast. Here's Anna Maria. Good evening to you.
Good evening, Frank, and good evening. Police launched a dramatic appeal today to try to reduce knife crime on London streets. The capital's youth are being urged to hand in their weapons at police stations with no questions asked. Ken Andrew reports from Holborn Police Station.
These secure bins will become familiar sights outside every London police station over the next 6 weeks. They'll be there to encourage youngsters to hand in their knives, and police say there'll be no questions asked. On display today, some of the evil-looking weapons that police officers have faced carrying out their duties. It's a growing problem. In the last 3 months, 19 officers have suffered knife attacks, and police fear it'll get worse as more youngsters carry knives for self-defence.
It's not just street-hardened thugs who carry knives. People carry knives for all sorts of reasons. For self-defence, because they think it's clever to do so, it's fashionable to do so. And what we want to do is to encourage as many people as possible to think about why they carry knives, to get rid of their knives, and for the parents, and for the families, and for the friends of these people, to encourage them to get rid of their knives now.
It's a measure of the scale of the problem facing police that even police stations in relatively peaceful areas will operate the scheme. 3 years ago, a similar amnesty in just 16 of the Met's 74 divisions produced 1,200 knives. The amnesty comes exactly 1 week after a police sergeant was stabbed to death and 2 other police officers seriously injured in knife attacks. 2 men have been charged in connection with those incidents, but today there have been further important developments. Linda Ward reports from Waltham Forest Magistrates Court.
The man accused of killing Sergeant Alan King left Waltham Forest Magistrates Court today charged with 2 further murders. The body of 30-year-old Lorna Bogle was found on the 21st of November in the hallway outside her flat on West Avenue Road in Walthamstow. On Napier Road in Leytonstone 3 days later, 37-year-old Javid Iqbal's body was discovered in the back garden of his home. Both bodies had multiple stab wounds. 26-year-old Nicholas Vernage, who's unemployed and of no fixed address, is accused of their murders. No application for bail was made at the court and he was remanded in custody for 7 days. He first appeared here on Monday charged with the murder of Sergeant Alan King. In a separate hearing, Peter Grenfell appeared charged with Alan King's murder. Like Vernage, he too is accused of the attempted murder of 2 police constables in Thornton Heath. The defendants appeared separately after an application by the prosecution on the grounds of security. He was remanded in custody for 7 days. Linda Ward, LWT News, Waltham Forest.
No date has yet been set for the funeral of Sergeant King. His widow, understandably, is still too deeply distressed to talk about the incident. Ken Andrew, LWT News, Holborn.
Knife violence on London streets. In his spare time, Graham Guilford worked as a special constable, helping the elderly and children across the road. Today, he was jailed for 9 years for sexually abusing boys in care. Lisa Hazelhurst was in court.
For years, 11 deaf boys suffered untold misery behind the closed doors of Oak Lodge School. Their abuser was an unlikely suspect. 41-year-old Graham Guilford was a special police constable and a respected charity worker. Everyone liked him. But for the children at the Wandsworth School, he was a bully who terrorised his young victims into silence.
That abuse was made worse because Guilford's victims are profoundly deaf and cannot speak, making their horror and embarrassment all the more difficult to communicate. The judge told Guilford he had substantially added to their problems.
They are coping with it extremely well, but we do recognise that they will need extra care and attention, and as far as we can give it, then of course we shall.
The boys' silence was broken when they courageously reported Guilford to the police, and today he was jailed on 17 sex charges for 9 years. The judge said, over 7 years you systematically and persistently molested boys at the school. You have proved yourself totally unfit to have any responsibility for children. This was a terrible betrayal of trust. He also ruled that schools should have better procedures for dealing with the torment of abuse. Lisa Hazelhurst, LWT News, Wandsworth.